You came into this world with nothing and you will leave with nothing. The timeline between birth and death, birth of this body and death of this body, this timeline is unknown. This breath that you're breathing right now is precious and it's worthy of all of your love, all of your attention. So regardless of where you find yourself on this journey, don't wait for the rebirth. Don't wait for, oh, now I'm in the dying process and things are changing. And so I'm going to wait so that I can rebirth. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying embrace the journey as it comes. Hello, gorgeous, and welcome to another episode of the Spiritual Rebel Podcast, where I want to talk about the process of birth and death. A lot of us, when we think about birth and death, we think about being born and we think about when we were going to leave the body. But when we have a spiritual awakening or when we're growing, you will understand that there's a much deeper layer into the process of birthing and dying. So I have had periods in my life where I felt like there was a part of me that was dying and that a new version of me was being born. So it's very important to understand that as you're going through your process and your journey in life, you will be going through moments where you are rebirthing and a part of you is dying. And this process needs to be understood. This is where you need to be very kind and gentle with yourself. So one of the first moments for me to feel this was when I had that first awakening with 22, 23 years old when I was in India. And I had that awakening. I came to understand that there is a part of me that came into this world with nothing and is going to leave with nothing. And where when I connect to it, I call that part of me my spirit, my soul. When I connect to that part of me, it really connects me with my divine self and divine essence. And everything makes sense and I feel peace and I feel at home. Now, when I was going through that process of awakening to this new version of understanding who I was, I also felt like I was dying, that there was a certain part of who I was that could no longer be. So the version of me that believed that I was a victim and that everybody else was responsible for what I was feeling, that part of me started to diminish and diminish and diminish. The part of me that was always afraid and felt like afraid of people, afraid of myself, afraid of the dark, that part of me started to diminish. And the part of me that was feeling confident, feeling strong, feeling powerful, that started to grow and increase. So that was a rebirth from the old version of myself into a new version of myself. And then I was riding that wave until, for example, I met my husband. Yeah, we've been together for 25, 26 years now. And when I met him, the part of me that was the single woman traveling the world alone, being a global nomad and literally being free and not having to answer to anyone except myself, I suddenly was in a relationship and that part of me was dying. Now I'm in a relationship. I'm staying in one place. I'm staying with this person. So I needed to go through a rebirth process where I lost that old version of myself and a new version. So this is a birthing and this is a dying, right? In life, you will go through moments in your life where your life is changing and transforming, where you will literally be feeling that effect of that dying part of you, and then the effect of this new rebirthing. That process is not always comfortable. In the case of these two cases that I'm giving you now, it was actually a beautiful process. And I didn't feel a lot of mourning for the old version of myself. I didn't feel a lot of, felt more joyful. It felt more like, yay. I felt like I was more reclaiming old parts of me that had maybe got lost along the way. And being together, of course, when you come together in the first time in a relationship, there's a lot of excitement, a lot of joy, laughter, love, and all of that juiciness. So fast forward to my 30th birthday, right? After, being with my husband for some time, we moved to Switzerland. We were living in Germany. We moved to Switzerland. That was a rebirth again, because I'm leaving a place that I'd become familiar with, even though I'd only stayed there for like 3.5 years. Still, I was moving to a new place. And in that new place, I would need to have new friends. I would need to discover a whole new place and people and energy. So that was a dying and a rebirth, right? We were homeless. My husband and I were homeless for a while, meaning that we went through a bankruptcy at one stage when we left Germany on the road looking for our new home, looking for how we were going to build this life that fitted more to what we both wanted. And that landed us in Switzerland when we were in that kind of nomadic state. But we were nomadic. We moved, we stayed a couple of months here. We even went to Asia and stayed a couple of months over there. And then we would travel back to Switzerland. And I stayed with my sister. She had a couple of beautiful properties. We stayed there. And that was a while that we were in that transition before we gave birth to the new version of ourselves. Like after having experienced that bankruptcy, we were having to give birth to a fresh Mahima and Kai. And I remember when we got our new apartment, beautiful 5.5 bedroom apartment, and we settled down into this home and built this home. It was again this feeling of there's a part of our life that's ended and something is being reborn. And now we're in this beautiful 5.5 bedroom apartment with mountain views. I could have my painting studio and do my artwork and do my meditations. We had a room for meditation. We could make one room into a walk-in closet because we're fashion lovers. Okay. I don't think you need to be a victim of fashion. I think you can just be a fashion lover. So we made this one room into a walk-in closet. And so we set ourselves up and it felt like a rebirth. It felt like we came into our own and we started to create abundance and success again in our lives. And it was a rebirth and was wonderful. And then it happened again. It was time for the next level. And all these death and rebirth things are about you're done with a level and it's time to upgrade to the next level. And you can go to that next level kicking and screaming and go into depression or really lose yourself. Or you can go into it understanding what is happening, opening your heart, opening your mind, allowing the process, and then you can go through it with much more grace and ease. So that's what happened. That's what happened. We experienced another moment where we saw that, yes, we'd built something, but we hadn't really considered what we're building, what we really, really, really want. Yeah, because when you go out of a bankruptcy and then opportunities stop presenting themselves, you start grabbing those opportunities because you're kind of a little bit more in survival mode than creation mode. At least that was how I still was back then. We were young still. And when you're young, you still make mistakes, even though we already had access to manifestation and mindset training. There were certain things we still hadn't learned. For example, about creating a bigger vision and being super clear about that vision is aligned with your talents, but especially when you're trying to put two lives together, right? That you make sure you're building something that both people are really excited about, right? So sometimes life just happens and you have kind of an idea of what you want, but you haven't properly envisioned it and made it even more clear. And that's what I suggest you do. I really suggest that you take time to have more details in there, because what will happen is you'll arrive, like I did, to my 40th birthday and discover that you hadn't thought it through enough. And you're thinking, I'm 40 and I didn't expect to still be here. I thought I'd be a lot further at this stage of the game. I thought I would have way, 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 way more beautiful clients that I can serve with my personal growth, manifestation, inner work. I just didn't expect to see myself still in a certain scenario. So then that was another moment of something is dying and a rebirth. And I remember getting some business coaches, investing 30,000 in those coaches and investing in gaining my independence, taking myself to the next level. I started writing my book, which is my international best-selling book called A Rebel's Guide to Inner Peace. If you want to check it out, the links are here in this beautiful podcast. And also it's the Inner Peace Formula. So I released it under these two titles, Rebel's Guide to Inner Peace and the Inner Peace Formula. The same book, so you can just enjoy whichever one feels more attracting to you. So I started to listen more to the calling that if I continue doing what I'm doing here, if I stay as this version of Mahima, I'm never going to experience the potential that I knew I still had inside of me. So I had to have the courage to go out of my comfort zone and literally kill that old version of Mahima in order to rebirth and to rise to the new version. I started traveling again because I already had that experience when I was younger and started teaching. I again started traveling all over the world, teaching people how to be peaceful and powerful. We went to America. We went to all over Europe, Finland. We were in Finland. We were in Denmark and Sweden and Zurich and Austria and Italy. And the rebirth of me having owned that I knew I have more potential inside of me came to life, right? And I found myself making money I could have never imagined from my talent and gaining that independence that I had so wanted to gain over so many years being in that dependent financial situation. So suddenly I had financial freedom. I had the beautiful clients, I had the life and dream that I wanted to have, and it was amazing and felt awesome. But again, that process, what there was a dying and a rebirth. And then what happened next? Then COVID, COVID hit, and we were traveling all over the world, and that's how we would engage people into our beautiful work. And then suddenly, because of COVID, we couldn't travel anywhere. And slowly but surely that started to affect our beautiful business that we had built together. My husband joined me at one point. That was part of his, death and rebirth process, was joining me and us becoming a power couple working together on the same mission and vision. And then COVID hit and that the same thing happened. I felt like we had to rethink when things opened up. Do we want to go back on the road and do all of that traveling? Or, is that, okay, that's done, but now do we really want to continue doing that? The answer was no. It was a lot of work and it was a lot of stress and it was amazing and we loved it. But we felt like if we had a choice to rebuild, we wouldn't rebuild the same model, right? And so that process, and I've been in that process for for a while, and now it's coming the rebirth, right? With the Spiritual Rebel podcast, the Happy Human Tribe, and the Love University, and other things that I'm birthing to get to the next level of my brilliance, to untap the next level of what I have inside of me. So, with all of this, I want to say, have the courage to let go of old versions of yourself that no longer serve you. That will also take place as maybe the way of doing business, the relationships that you're in, the country that you live in, the clothes that you wear or don't wear, the way that you speak. There will be a dying process and there will be a birthing process. And I want you to embrace that process and get excited when you find yourself in a situation in life that is all about questioning and letting go of the old that no longer serves you so that the new can come through. It is such an important thing to keep in mind so you don't get upset and depressed and you don't resist, because the more we resist change, the more difficult the change is, and the longer you stay in the process of rebirthing. The more you can embrace it and honor it and accept that this is part of the beautiful dance, the quicker you can go through that process and get to the juiciness of feeling that rebirth and experiencing what comes along with that. Yes. So that's what I wanted to share with you today on the Spiritual Rebel podcast. Embrace birth and death. And remember this: you came into this world with nothing and you will leave with nothing. The timeline between birth and death, birth of this body and death of this body, this timeline is unknown. This breath that you're breathing right now is precious and it's worthy of all of your love, all of your attention. So regardless of where you find yourself on this journey, don't wait for the rebirth. Don't wait for, oh, now I'm in the dying process and things are changing. And so I'm going to wait so that I can rebirth. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying embrace the journey as it comes. Enjoy the seasons. I've seen people make up stories like, oh, I get depressed in the winter and when it's summer, I shine. I'm like, no, find a way to enjoy and celebrate the winter. And then when summer comes, it's also beautiful, right? Enjoy every moment of your life. All you have is this present moment. So live it with dignity and live it with grace. Learn how to bring all your attention into the vertical plane of consciousness, the here and now, and walk with awareness, love, and joy. That's it for today. Share this with anyone that you think is going to need this. Don't forget to rate this podcast so more people can have access to it, and also to share it with your friends who might need this message. Love, love, love. Love for yourself, love for the world, and love for others. Let's make this world a better place together. Love. Bye, everyone.